Hello again, everyone. This is Steve Kallas speaking of sports. I'm here with Westchester County Post contributor Johnnie Kallas, and we're here to talk about the great life and unfortunate death this morning at the age of 86 of the great Henry Aaron. I read an article today where Henry Aaron said he didn't like to be called Hank, which I'm sorry, I never knew, but I always liked the nickname Bad Henry as opposed to Hammerin' Hank. So I'll go with Bad Henry if I can remember during this whole thing. But Johnnie, give me your thoughts. I mean, you know the legendary Hank Aaron, Henry Aaron. You saw a lot of video of him, I'm sure. Probably saw his 715th home run about 100 times in your life already. But a truly great player, a truly great gentleman, class act on and off the field. Great pressure, of course, when he was going after Babe Ruth's record. Give me your thoughts, understanding, your feelings on Henry Aaron.
Yeah, at least 100 times, I'd say. Henry Aaron, I have him as one of the top 5 baseball players of all time. Most consistent power hitter by far of all time. Arguably the greatest power hitter of all time. I think you and I will agree. I still consider him the home run king. And before we dive a little bit more into baseball, also by all accounts, just a great person, appreciated being in more of a small town market, Milwaukee, then obviously to Atlanta. And I think he finished a couple years in Milwaukee at the end of his career. Had 35 plus home runs, an uncountable amount of times it seemed like. And the RBI king as well. A lot of people know the home runs number, which in a lot of ways is, the most important statistic in the history of American sport. But also, led the career in RBI, or has the most RBI in a major league player's career with just under 2,300, 2,297. So, like I said, I think one of the 5 greatest players of all time. Also an excellent postseason resume, which I know you might go into, even though he only appeared in 3 postseason series. He did win 1 World Series, I believe, in 1957, I assume against the Yankees, since it seemed like everything was against the Yankees back then. And just a really great guy. A little bit more under the radar than the Willie Mays or the Mickey Mantles, probably because he didn't play in New York. But frankly, a overall better offensive player than both of those two, and definitely a more consistent player. And if I could just say, going back to I read an article which basically claimed that Henry Aaron was the anti-Barry Bonds, or Barry Bonds was the anti-Henry Aaron, depending on the way you want to look at it. But I always thought, even though I know that it really disappointed him, to say the least, that's putting it mildly, how Bonds passed his record, and it's clear that Barry Bonds took HGH steroids or whatever. I know you can read, what is it, Game of Shadows paperback edition if you want more proof. Yeah. But still, just the classiest guy to the very end. I mean, I don't know the politics behind his video announcement once Bonds hit the home run, but I just thought, even though I think Henry Aaron's a home run king, you think Henry Aaron, I think, is a home run king, even though he was clearly and justifiably so very frustrated and pissed off with everything that went on, and how Barry Bonds, after the age of 38, did whatever he did. He still had that message. And I just thought it was the utmost sign of class from him, doing something that he really obviously did not want to do, but clearly was just a step above, not just Barry Bonds, but most people on sort of the character scale. So we'll miss him a lot. And I encourage people, obviously, I think you've seen that home run a million times, but there's a lot of other home runs, and I encourage people to go watch some video of Henry Aaron. It's really remarkable stuff.
Yeah, he clinched the pennant in 1957 with an extra inning home run against Cincinnati. Had incredible stats. I mean, I'll have to read the postseason stats. As you said, he beat the Yankees in 57 in 7 games, lost to the Yankees in 58 in 7 games. His only other appearance was in 66. They moved to Atlanta from Milwaukee to Atlanta. And in 69, which was the first year of that win divisions in Major League Baseball, was the Braves against the Miracle Mets. Braves were favored. The Mets swept them. And Aaron had an incredible series. I'll just give you his overall postseason batting. In that series against the Mets, he hit 3 home runs in 3 games. He batted 357. His OPS was 1.50, 1,500. I mean, those are video game numbers. But overall, 3 series, 17 games. He had 362. His OBP was 405. His slugging was 710. 1.116. Again, these are video numbers. But there are lots of other things to his game which nobody ever talks about. I'll give you just a few examples of his stolen base. So could Henry Aaron run? Was he a 5-tool player? Yeah. How do we know that? All you'll read about is, he was a great base runner. Okay, what does that mean? He was smart first to third, or he didn't go when he was going to get thrown out at home. But I'll just give you 4 years, and then his totals. 1963, 4, 5, and 6. 31 steals, caught stealing 5 times. 22 steals, caught stealing 4 times. 24 steals, caught stealing 4 times. In 1966, when, oh, by the way, he led the league in home runs, 44, led the league in RBIs, 127. 21 steals, 3 caught. So in those 4 years, Johnny, 98 for 114, an 86% success rate. Come on. Overall for his career, and this is the greatest home run hitter, beat Ruth, #1 in my book, 240 steals, thrown out 73 times, 77%. And this is Henry Aaron. This isn't, take nothing away from Maury Wills, 74% success rate. Take nothing away from Lou Brock, 75%. Rickey Henderson, the greatest of all time, 80%. Couple of other things. How about in the field? Was he a great fielder? Well, he won 3 Gold Gloves. He's also against a guy named Clemente a lot of those years in right field, who we all use as the model. But in 23 seasons playing the outfield, Hank Aaron had 201 outfield assists. Now, you can't compare him to Clemente, 18 seasons, 266 assists, but he averaged about 9 a season. Willie Mays, 22 seasons, 195. 1 less season, few less assists. Al Kaline, Al Kaline, he had a gun. 21 seasons is 140. So he averaged 7. Mays and Aaron averaged about 9. Again, just to give you kind of a sense, and I will not even say he's better or had a better arm. He's just, this is what Henry Aaron did. He did all these things that nobody knows. I'll give you a couple more. Fielding percentage. Henry Aaron had a better fielding percentage with Willie Mays by, like 100th of a point. But it doesn't matter. He was in the neighborhood with him. Had a better fielding percentage than Roberto Clemente and was just a little behind Al Kaline. I'm giving you, to me, 4 of the greatest outfielders of all time. And he's right there with them. All-time total base, 6,856. Nobody looks at that. More total bases than anybody in the history of baseball. Just again, as you said, 2,297 RBIs, and one that's another one under the radar. So everybody knows Cobb, Pete Rose, right? Well, who's third? 3,771 hits.
I did not realize. Even I must admit that. Wow.
Even unfathomable. And again, 755 of them were homers. Take nothing away from Rose and Cobb, but again, the guy was just so much. And then we can talk briefly, or I will anyway, about off the field. So they moved from Milwaukee to Atlanta in 1966. And what is that? The civil rights era. John Lewis is living there. Martin Luther King has his church there. Warnock, who was just, elected senator, is at the same church that Martin Luther King was the pastor at back in the 60s. So he walked right into that. You never saw him to be an outright political, outspoken guy, but he always did things behind the scenes. As you said, always a classy guy off the field, took the high road with Bonds, and that had to be incredibly hard because everybody knew what was going on, if not right then shortly thereafter. So I give Bad Henry all the credit in the world, an incredible guy on the field, an incredible guy off the field. But the reason I bring up those maybe, I don't know, small stats to some people is just to get a sense. Everybody knows about the home runs. Everybody knows about the RBIs. Nobody knows about the stolen bases. Very few people know about the arm and the fielding percentage. But to me, that's why it was bad Henry, whatever he was doing. And of course, bad isn't good. Whatever he was doing, he was as good as the best of the best of the best or better. So I give him all the credit in the world. 86 is a good run. You hate to see it whenever it happens. But I think this should really be hopefully more of a celebration of his life than sadness of his death. Got any other thoughts on Bad Henry?
Those are excellent thoughts, Steve. And it really makes me think, just hearing that from a baseball standpoint, I think he's now solidly in my top 5. Think about it, 3,771 hits for a power hitter. No, seriously, for a power hitter. And I think there's newfound, attention to people who can perform at a high level for a long period of time. It's one thing to do that in 2020. This guy was doing it in the mid-50s through the mid-70s. So that, and you think also the era he played in, I think we've talked about this. There was, I think, some controversy, both racial and also probably mainly racial. But at the time also, Babe Ruth did it in 154 games. He did it in I think a couple thousand less plate appearances, all that. But think of what Henry Aaron had to go through playing in the South. Babe Ruth was the most beloved sports figure maybe still in American sports history. He's probably right up there with Michael Jordan. Think of what Henry Aaron had to go through. Babe Ruth didn't have to face anywhere near that level of adversity. And think about how just people hit the ball so much easier back in the 20s and 30s, for lack of a better way of putting it. And then you can even compare him to a guy like Ted Williams, who we often view as the greatest pure hitter of all time. And I won't say you should take away from Ted Williams his one postseason appearance, but I'm going to give Henry Aaron a lot of credit for, in his very limited amount of time, performing at such a high level when it mattered the most, which was in his 3 postseason appearances. So I have to say that's really great stuff that you dug up on his base running and fielding. But I think that 3,771 hits as a power hitter, that's almost as good as Ty Cobb and Pete Rose as contact hitters. I know Cobb might have had power, but that's a different story. Right. So Henry Aaron, that's a really great point. The adversity he had to go through was a class act. He's going to be sorely missed, but I think because he wasn't in a place like New York, he was often overlooked. Hopefully he won't be overlooked anymore. He's one of the 5 greatest baseball players of all time.
No question, Mays and Mantle, and everyone knows Mays played in New York before they moved out to San Francisco, but even San Francisco, when they moved out west, became San Francisco, LA to this day. I think he was actually lost in Milwaukee, as we talk about some other players lost in wherever, and even lost in Atlanta when they moved to Atlanta. And you're right, it was back in the Deep South. The stuff that he put up, here's something. So you pointed out intelligently, nobody even knows this. They go, oh, he played for Milwaukee and Atlanta, but the last 2 years of his career, he went back to the Milwaukee Brewers. Of course, the Braves had come from Milwaukee to Atlanta. And he actually stated that he did not want to play in Atlanta after the 74 season, when he hit the 714th and 715th homers, and of course, a few more. But he didn't want to be there because he didn't feel he was he didn't think he got the fan support he deserved. Now, again, you're in Atlanta in the 70s. He's 100% right. But as you pointed out, look at the time, look at the era, look at what he went through. It said he got over 900,000 pieces of mail, and all the negative ones, of which there were many, he kept in shoeboxes. And he would never throw them out, and he would show them to people to see. And the things that were written to him are just so disgusting. And Bob Costas once asked him many years later, so I hope you don't just take the negative. And, there were millions of fans you influenced, millions of fun. Jackie Robinson was his hero, because he saw Jackie somewhere when he was like 14, just when he was coming Jackie Robinson. And they both played in the Negro Leagues, before he went to the Braves. But Costas asked him, I hope you don't take just the negative ones, because he was showing them the shoebox. Don't take the negative ones. I hope you got tons of positive mail. And he goes, you're totally right, but I always kept these because I never wanted to forget them, and I never wanted anybody else to forget them. And there's a real powerful message there. All these years later, have things gotten better? Well, we could debate that. Yeah, things have gotten better, but it's the old, we've come a long way. We've got a long way to go. Look what's happened in our country in the last few years. But Hank Aaron, from beginning to end, high-class guy, gentleman, answer to a funny question, of course. Who are the brothers who have the most combined home runs of all time? Of course, his brother Tommy hit 13 home runs, so it's Hank Aaron and Tommy Aaron. A more interesting one, I can't tell you the numbers, though. Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews playing together. Eddie Matthews, another great power hitter, is in the Hall of Fame. Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews together passed Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig as the most home runs for teammates. I don't know what the number is. I know Matthews hitting the 500s, and they played together for a long time. So I think that's just another, again, you look at these stats and Hank Aaron pops up somewhere again on all of these lists, and you're just shaking your head. As you said, maybe the most impressive that no one will talk about is 3,771 hits. But a great life lived. He went through a lot. He did his own fighting, I believe, for civil rights in his own way. That was one excellent example. But it's interesting to me that he wanted out of Atlanta after that season and back to Milwaukee, last 2 seasons with the Bruins, where he managed to hit, a few more home runs, not a lot, but, he was Hank Aaron. So a great all-around player, a great all-around human being.
Agreed.
This is Steve Kallas speaking of sports, along with Johnnie Kallas, talking about the late, great Henry Aaron. We'll see you the next time.